My mother dismissively kicked me out of Thanksgiving, so I decided to take something off the table too, my business card. The next day, I realized how much they really needed me. I'm 34 years old and male. For as long as I can remember, I've been the most stable member of my family. While my older sister, Laura, 36, bounced from one failed business to another, and my younger brother, Tomas, 29, blew his college fund on spring break and a convertible sports car, I just kept working. I'm a supervisor at a mid-sized manufacturing plant in Ohio, where we produce auto parts, mostly for the big automakers. I started at the bottom right after graduating high school, and after 16 years of hard work, I worked my way up. I'm not rich, but I live comfortably. I have good benefits, a stable salary, profit sharing, and a decent 401k. I live in a rented house about 20 minutes from work. I drive a Honda Civic that's already paid off, and probably the most expensive thing I have to maintain is my dog Rocky's vet bills. I've never been extravagant. For me, being wasteful means buying name brand cereal instead of generic brands. But apparently, being responsible with money turned me into the family bank. One Tuesday night in November, after a grueling day at the factory due to a malfunctioning sensor on one of the production lines, I arrived home exhausted. My shift starts at 6 a.m., and I'd stayed until 9 p.m. I just wanted to heat up a leftover slice of pizza and relax by watching an episode of The Office before bed. I'd just finished feeding Rocky when the phone rang. It was my mother. Her name appeared in the identifier as Mom. I never changed it since I was young and used to put hearts in contact names. It wasn't unusual for her to call me. It was usually twice a week, and she always had some kind of need. Computer problems because of Facebook ads, questions about the new washing machine my father bought without telling her, or money issues. The car needs brakes, the water heater died, Tomas needs help with the rent. I always agree. It's easier than putting up with their veiled complaints or passive-aggressive comments at family gatherings. But that call was different from the very first second. Her voice was cold. There was no greeting, no questions about my day, no chats about the weather or complaints about her neighbors. She was direct and blunt. "Don't come for Thanksgiving." She said it like someone telling you not to forget to buy bread. It took me a while to process it. What? Why? This year we want something more intimate. Just close family. It's worth noting that I'm immediate family. I'm the middle child, and I've never missed a Thanksgiving dinner. I've driven through blizzards to be there on time, swapped shifts, and turned down invitations from friends and my girlfriend Valeria's family. But all of that seemed irrelevant now. Mom, did something happen? Did I do something wrong? We think it's better this way. Have you been difficult lately? That word hit me like a ton of bricks. Difficult? I was the one who'd been asking why they were spending over $800 a month at the supermarket when there were only 2 of them at home. Or why my supposedly retired father was filling up his truck 3 times a week. Why they needed my help paying the mortgage when they said the pension check was on its way for the 3rd time that year. I also questioned Laura asking for another $3,000 for a new business idea after failing at the previous ones without paying back a single penny. Or that Tomas was paying exorbitant rent right downtown when I don't even have a mortgage. I just paid for his house. But questioning that made things difficult for me. Mom, I don't understand. What do you mean by complicated? Do you know what I'm talking about, Andres? She only calls me by my full name when she's really upset. You've been doubting everything, as if we were planning to take advantage of you. We raised you better than that. It was pure manipulation, and for the first time, I was outraged. I'm not doubting everything. I'm just asking reasonable questions. They don't have to justify themselves, unless I'm the one paying their bills. Silence. Only the television could be heard. a program Dad always watches at that time. Then her voice became sharper again. If that's what you think, then you'd better stay home. And then I did something I'd never done before. I didn't apologize. I didn't beg them to fix it. I didn't offer to pay anything. I just said, okay. Then don't use my card again either. The silence was absolute. I could imagine their expressions, as if their brains couldn't quite grasp what they'd just heard. In 34 years, I'd never said no to them about money. I never set a limit. What do you mean? He asked, now his voice trembling. What I said, if I'm not welcome at dinner, then you can't continue to depend on me financially. Andres, don't be serious. I'm completely serious. And by the way, the mortgage is in your name on the house where you live. And I hung up. My hands were shaking. I put the phone down on the counter and stared at it. It didn't ring again. I sat down at the table, staring at the wall, trying to process what had happened. And in that moment, I felt a change inside me. Literally, as if something loosened inside my chest. A burden I had carried for years. That constant fear of not being able to handle the next problem, of disappointing my family, for the first time, became bearable. I opened a beer and plopped down on the couch with Rocky, my dog, who immediately seemed to sense that something was wrong. He looked at me with those worried eyes that only a loyal dog can have. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt like I could truly breathe. After that call, sleep was impossible for me. There was one word that kept going around in my head: difficult. The more I thought about it, the more a cold, serene anger washed over me. Not the kind that makes you scream, but the kind that pushes you to see everything with new clarity. So, at 2 a.m. on a Wednesday, I did what any sane person would do after feeling like their family had just kicked them in the gut. I logged into my online banking and started reviewing my statements, one by one, going back years. What I discovered exceeded all my suspicions. It had all started small about 5 years ago, when my father's hours were cut at the depot where he had worked for over 2 decades. A typical corporate restructuring. They laid off the most senior employees to hire young people for half the salary. They couldn't make the mortgage payment that month. They said it was just a temporary setback, that it would only last for that month, until Dad found something or his unemployment benefits came through. So I helped out. It was $1,847. I remember it well because I had to dip into my savings to cover it. But Dad never got a steady job again. She did some shifts at stores like Home Depot, temporary jobs during holidays, but nothing stable, nothing that came close to her old income. And that, 1 month, job turned into something permanent. I started to see a pattern that made my stomach churn. Every month, the same amount, $1,847, was withdrawn from my account on the 28th, right when the mortgage was due. On top of that, there were between $400 and $600 worth of groceries, until I noticed they were shopping at a high-end organic store instead of a regular supermarket. The utility bills ranged from $250 to $300 a month. And although it seemed excessive, I remembered that Dad kept the heat at 23 degrees Celsius year-round and Mom used the air conditioning like she was trying to freeze the house. Fuel for Dad's truck cost between $200 and $250 a month, which made no sense for someone supposedly retired who only went out to the supermarket or the doctor. And that didn't even include the car repairs, which were never lacking: new tires, brakes, oil changes, mysterious problems that, coincidentally, always cost exactly what I could afford at the time. Then came the hardest blows. The loans Laura took out for her businesses and ended up abandoning, which ultimately fell on me. First, $8,000 to buy inventory for her booty. Then, $12,000 for a marketing campaign and website development. Then, $3,500 for consulting equipment he never used. On top of that, Tomas's tuition, $6,000 per semester for 3 years. Later, I discovered he had never applied for financial aid. He simply used his student funds to buy that ridiculous car and for vacations in Panama City Beach. When I added it all up, I was in shock. I spent hours going over the numbers again and again because I couldn't believe it. In 5 years, I had given away about $127,000. Not lent, because they never paid back a penny. And after the first few attempts, I even stopped pretending they were loans. $127,000. I'm not doing badly financially. I earn about $75,000 a year with overtime and profit sharing. But I'm not rich. That money could have gone toward a house for Valeria and me, or our retirement fund, to the education of our future children. And for questioning it, they called me difficult. I couldn't sleep again, so I kept searching through my emails to understand when everything had gone wrong. That's when I noticed something strange in my Gmail search results, a thread of emails from my sister that I had accidentally copied back in February. At the time, I only skimmed it, thinking it was about organizing Dad's birthday party. I filed it away without paying much attention. But the subject line said, Dredeman, and that made me suddenly uneasy. I opened it. The email had nothing to do with the birthday. It was Laura replying to Mom. Yes, I think you're right about spacing it out. Andres acted strangely when I asked him about the car right after the oven incident. Maybe it's better to wait until next month to talk about Tomas's books, or perhaps Mom should ask. My hands trembled. I went back to the initial message. I think we need to be more careful with the calendar. Andres has been asking more questions, especially about the receipts. Can you take care of the books? Do you know how he is with educational expenses? Do you know what he's like? As if I were a predictable machine they'd learn to manipulate. I stared at the screen in silence. It wasn't some grand conspiracy. It was worse. It was routine. It was family business. As if I were just another item on their to-do list. I kept looking. I found a group chat I'd been removed from last summer. Tomas was asking, Has anyone spoken to Andres this month? I don't want any overlap. And Laura, meanwhile, was writing to Mom. What excuse did you use about the insurance? Andres asked about my car again. It wasn't malice. They weren't villains laughing behind my back. It was simply efficiency. They treated me like a bank account with a name and surname. And the worst part was an email where Mom told Laura, Don't mention the trip to Andres. He's been stressed about money lately and might take it badly. That trip was to Myrtle Beach. A long weekend. Photos all over her social media. Meanwhile, I was sending Tomas urgent money for his books and worrying about whether I'd be able to fix my own car's brakes. I closed my laptop. I stood alone in the kitchen with a mixture of anger, disappointment, and exhaustion that I don't know how to describe. There was no emotional breakdown, no dramatic scene. Just that deep feeling, like a pit in my stomach, as I realized my family had been manipulating me for years. And I, so eager to help, had never noticed. I didn't make impulsive decisions. That's not my style. After seeing how calculating they could be, I decided that if I was going to act, I would do so more intelligently than they did. I spent the following week gathering evidence. Every transfer, every fabricated emergency, every lie I could back up with emails or bank statements. I compiled spreadsheets so detailed they would make a forensic auditor weep with joy. Date, amount, stated reason, actual use when I could determine it, subsequent requests, and whether there had been any attempt to return anything to me. The pattern was so clear it was almost comical. For 5 years, I wasn't just helping financially. I had become an essential part of their financial structure. I didn't just cover expenses, I was like a pillar of their lifestyle. They had set up automatic mortgage payments from my checking account. The same for basic services, like gas and electricity. They even had a credit card linked to my account as a backup in case of overdrafts. They were on my Costco membership, using my Amazon Prime account and my Netflix. They had structured their daily routine around me, and with such confidence, they had stopped bothering to hide it. The first thing I did was open new accounts at another bank on the other side of town. I moved my direct deposit there. I changed all my passwords to ones they couldn't guess. I enabled two-step authentication for everything. I wanted a complete separation before taking any action. And then I did something that at the time seemed insignificant, but which turned out to be crucial. I started taking detailed notes of all the conversations with my family. Valeria thought I was exaggerating when she saw me taking notes after a phone call, but I had a feeling something serious was coming. And I wasn't wrong. That Friday, my mother called me. "Honey," she said in that saccharine tone she always used when she wanted something. "I've been thinking about Thanksgiving, and maybe your father and I were a little too harsh." I kept my voice neutral as I picked up a notebook and pen. "Your father and I talked about it, and we think you should come after all. We're family, and family sticks together through thick and thin." A week earlier, that invitation would have been a relief. Perhaps I would have apologized for being difficult and shown up with flowers and wine, grateful to be accepted back. But now I clearly heard the real message. We realized we need your money more than our pride. "And what made you change your mind?" I asked as I took notes. "We just miss you, sweetheart. It's not the same without all our children. Laura and Tomas will be there. It would break my heart if you weren't here. All our children. Like I was still 12 years old and living at home." "That's nice to hear, Mom. But I have other plans." Silence. I could imagine her mind trying to reorganize her speech. "What other plans?" "Valeria's family invited me to Columbus. Her aunt will be hosting this year. It seems it will be pleasant." More silence. When he spoke again, his voice was more strained. "Well, you can still come have lunch with us and then go there for dinner." Desperation was starting to show. "I don't think so, Mom, but thanks for the invitation." "And what about Christmas then?" "You'll definitely come for Christmas." There it was. He didn't apologize for calling me difficult. She wouldn't admit to uninviting me to Thanksgiving. She was just trying to secure her spot at the next financial event. We'll see. "Andres, I don't understand what's wrong with you lately. This isn't you. Maybe it is. Perhaps you simply never took the time to get to know me." More silence. Then his tactic changed. "Your father, and I think you might be stressed about money. If you're having trouble, we can help." "I'm not having trouble, Mom." "So what's this all about?" I was about to tell her everything. To tell her about the emails, the payments, the manipulations. But something stopped me. Something told me it wasn't the right time yet. "I just think it's time to focus on my life for a while." "What does that mean?" "It means exactly what I just said." We hung up a few minutes later. I stared at my notes. In just 10 minutes, I had used 5 different manipulation techniques. Guilt about my family, a false sense of urgency about the holidays, offers of help designed to create emotional debt, questioning my mental state, demanding explanations as if I were entitled to them. A masterclass in emotional manipulation. And I'd been falling for it for years. That night, I finalized my plan. I was going to cut all ties, but without a scene, without arguments that could turn the situation into a story of the ungrateful son. No angry phone calls that could be recorded and played back for the rest of the family. Just disappear. The advantage of being the one who paid for everything was that I had all the account information. I knew which payments were automatic, which required attention, their patterns, their backup plans. I scheduled the disconnection of everything for the day after Thanksgiving. It felt poetic. They didn't want me at their dinner that day. Fine, they could enjoy their turkey and then wonder how they were going to pay for the gas they used to cook it. The day arrived, and it was the quietest I'd had in years. Valeria and I went to Columbus with her family. Normal people. They asked me about my work and actually listened. They shared funny stories from when Valeria was a child. Her mother showed me photo albums. Her father and I watched football and discussed the Browns' disastrous season. Nobody asked me for money. Nobody blamed me for not meeting family expectations. Nobody expected me to fix their lives. It was a revelation. When her mother asked about my family, I replied that there had been a scheduling conflict this year. Valeria squeezed my hand under the table. She knew the truth, and her support meant everything to me. We got back together that same night. I slept better than I had in weeks. The next morning, I put my plan into action. The first thing I did was cancel the automatic mortgage payment. I just logged into my online banking and turned it off. Okay, then I called the electricity company and removed my card from their account. I did the same with the gas. The customer service representative asked if I wanted to transfer the account to another person. No, I told her, just remove my payment information. I called the credit card company to unlink my bank account as a backup. The operator tried to convince me otherwise, warning me about overdraft fees. I replied that was exactly what I was looking for. I also canceled 2 gas cards in my name that, although meant for emergencies, were being used for weekly shopping. I removed them from my Costco membership, my Amazon Prime account, and even closed the Netflix account they used on their TV. The whole process took an hour and a half. Then I just had to wait. Nothing happened on Saturday. They probably hadn't tried using anything yet. Not even on Sunday. Although I noticed my dad was still active on that Facebook farm game, so the internet was still working. On Monday morning, I received a text message from my father at 11:30. Hi, son. Something strange is happening with the bank's website. I tried to check the mortgage payment status, but it wasn't showing up. Can you check it when you have a moment? The message said. I read it 3 times, then deleted it without replying. On Tuesday, my phone rang 12 times between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. I was at work, so I couldn't answer anyway. But watching each call go straight to voicemail brought me a strange sense of serenity, like watching a machine collapse just as I had anticipated. On Wednesday, I received a voicemail from my mother. I saved it, but I didn't listen to it. I wanted to wait and see how far they were willing to go before hearing their side of the story. On Thursday, Laura called me. I was getting ready for work, so I answered. I was curious to know what they had told her. Andres, what the hell is going on? She asked, sounding agitated. Mom called me last night crying. She said you cut off all their credit cards and they can't even buy food. That's not exactly what happened, I replied, putting her on speakerphone while I made coffee. So what happened? He said they went to the supermarket yesterday and all the cards were declined. Dad tried to get gas and the same thing happened. Did they use cards linked to my accounts? Yes. So you did cut them off, Andres. Those cards are in my name. I'd pay for them. They're not yours. There was a brief silence. But they need them for food, gas, basic necessities. They can pay for those things with their own money. What do you mean by their own money? The question hung in the air like a foul odor. The money they earn from their work. Like all adults do. Another awkward silence. Andres, you can't just abandon them like that. They're our parents. Abandon? I repeated sarcastically. Curious choice of words. You didn't say, set boundaries or stop enforcing them. You said abandon. Andres, can I ask you a question? Sure. Did you know they've been making spreadsheets about me for years? Noting which excuses work best to ask me for money. I heard him hold his breath. I don't know what you're talking about. Check the emails you sent on August 15th. Subject, Redmond. The silence lasted so long I thought she'd hung up. Finally, she murmured, That's not what it looks like. Oh no. Then what was it? We were just worried about you. You seemed stressed about money, and we didn't want you to feel any pressure. Laura, I interrupted her before she started making things up. I read all the emails. I looked at the files. I know about the meetings to plan how to get more money out of me. I know that Tomas never applied for financial aid for college. I know that you've never paid back a single penny of what I lent you. Another pause. Then I spoke to him firmly. Listen to me carefully. I'm done. I'm not angry or seeking revenge. I'm just finished. They told me not to go on Thanksgiving because it was too difficult to question where my money was going. So I took their advice. I'm no longer part of their financial planning. But Andres, they have to learn to solve their own problems, like the rest of the world does. I hung up. I finished getting ready and left the house. Before I even got to work, I'd already received 3 more calls. I ignored them all. By the end of the week, I'd been contacted by 3 aunts, 2 uncles, my grandmother, and even the mother of Tomas's girlfriend, whom I'd only met a couple of times. It was clear my parents had decided to use social pressure to force me to give in. The strangest thing was that all the conversations followed the same pattern. They had been told that I had cruelly abandoned my parents after a simple argument. No one knew that I had been covering their expenses for 5 years. No one knew about the manipulation or the strategies planned to extract money from me. According to their version of events, I was an ungrateful son, the victim of a nervous breakdown, or, worse yet, of the influence of Valeria, my girlfriend, whom they were now blaming for driving me away. A cousin told me the rumor was that they had asked me for help with a minor emergency, and that my reaction was disproportionate, cutting off all contact. None of that was true, but it sounded plausible. After all, who would believe that parents could financially exploit their own child? That was something you saw in movies, not in the lives of decent families in the middle of the country. That's when I understood that they would never tell the truth. They were going to make me look like the villain no matter what I said or did. So I decided to give them a real reason to be angry. Over that weekend, I put together a perfectly organized 15-page document, complete with charts, tables, and color coding. I compiled every payment made in the last 5 years. Emergencies that were actually regular expenses they simply didn't want to budget for. Every line backed up by emails or bank statements. Mortgage, $1,847 per month for 60 months equals $110,820. Utilities, an average of $275 per month, totaling $16,500. Credit cards, groceries, gasoline, and other expenses, $43,000. Tomas's alleged financial problem, $36,000. Laura's business failures, $23,500. Repairs, medical and home emergencies, $18,000. Total, $247,820. Almost $250,000. And the most shocking thing was the emails. Screenshots of conversations between them planning how to handle me, which stories they used best, even jokes about how easy it was to make me feel guilty. Laura writing to her mom. Andres can't stand seeing anyone sad, especially if it's a woman. If you cry, he'll throw money at you to shut you up. Mom to Laura. I learned not to ask for exact figures. Let him say a number first. Then I tell him it's not enough, and he usually raises it. Tomas to Dad. If you tell him it's for school, he doesn't ask for receipts. He assumes that everything academic is legitimate. All the evidence that they had seen me as a resource to be exploited. I sent it to every person who had contacted me to lecture me. Family, friends, Facebook acquaintances. I didn't include lengthy explanations, just a brief note. Since there seems to be some confusion regarding what happened, I've attached the complete financial record of my relationship with my parents and siblings over the past 5 years. I'm not upset, nor am I trying to hurt anyone. I've simply reached my limit of allowing myself to be manipulated by people who see me more as a source of money than as a family member. The numbers speak for themselves. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. In less than an hour, my phone began to fill up with text messages. But unlike the reprimands and lectures I'd been receiving all week, these were very different. Uncle Ricardo wrote to me, "My God, Andres, I had no idea the situation was so serious. I'm sorry I contacted you last week. I take back everything I said." My cousin Valeria also replied, "I can't believe it. I just read all this. It's absolutely insane." They were keeping spreadsheets. My Aunt Linda added, "Your parents told us you were refusing to help with the shopping out of spite. This completely changes things. I'm so sorry." Even my grandmother called to apologize. That call almost made me cry because she had been so disappointed in me. But the most meaningful response was from my Uncle Miguel, my father's brother. He called me directly at 7 o'clock in the evening. "Andres, it's Miguel. I just read your email." "Hey, man," I replied, feeling the weariness in my voice. "I owe you a big apology. 2 weeks ago, your father called me asking for a loan to pay off the mortgage. She told me you had refused because of some family problem, and that you were doing it out of spite." My stomach sank. "How much did he ask for?" I asked. 1,800. He explained that he didn't have that amount of cash on hand and felt bad for not being able to help. He'd been mulling it over ever since. And then I asked him a question that had been on my mind for a while. "Uncle, how long has Dad been asking the family for money?" There was a long pause. "Andres, I think you and I need to have a much deeper talk." That conversation lasted 2 hours. I discovered that my father had been asking various relatives for money for over a year. Always small amounts, a few hundred here and there, justified with excuses about temporary problems or unexpected expenses. Always with the promise that she only needed a little help, until I could take over again. But they weren't just using me. My parents were using my reputation as the responsible and stable son to scam the rest of the family as well. They made them believe that I was their main breadwinner, so any delay was just a matter of time before I sent the money. My Uncle Miguel had lent almost $3,000 over the past year. My cousin Jennifer had given them $800 to repair the car. My Aunt Carolina bought them groceries monthly because Dad told her I was away on a business trip and couldn't make transfers. In short, they had concocted a whole scheme, a kind of well-thought-out scam, using my name to get money from everyone. That same night, I updated the document where I was recording everything related to the matter, incorporating the new information from Uncle Miguel and other relatives who began contacting me to share their own experiences. I sent a revised version to everyone with a brief note. Additional information has come to light regarding the extent of the financial dependency. Apparently, my parents have been asking various family members for money over the past year, using my supposed support as justification. I recommend checking your credit notes if they've lent money recently. After that, my phone remained silent for exactly 6 hours. Then everything exploded. 3 weeks later, my family invited me to dinner to talk. My mother's voice sounded different, weaker, as if her usual strategies no longer worked. Valeria convinced me to go, looking for closure. I went, but I went prepared, documents, recorder, everything. The house was set up as if it were a theatrical production. Elegant tableware, candles, fresh flowers. Everyone pretended everything was normal, but the tension was almost palpable. My father was the first to lose his composure. "We need to talk about this tantrum you're throwing." A tantrum? I was 34 years old, and that's what she meant by my decision to take control of my finances. "You humiliated us," my mother said. "You aired private matters in front of the whole family. Not a single sorry for lying. Not an apology for abusing my trust. I'm just angry about being exposed." I pulled out my files. "Laura, how much of the money I invested in your businesses have you returned?" It was $23,500. She went pale. "We never said they were loans." "You're right, but when you tell people I cut off your support, what support are you talking about exactly?" Silence. "Tomas, how much of your college money did you actually use for studying?" He wouldn't look at me. He'd bought a €15,000 car while I was covering his registration. "We're family," my mother murmured. "Family helps each other. And when was the last time any of you helped me with anything? When was the last time you even bothered to ask how I was doing? Then I told you about the loans to my Uncle Miguel, to Jennifer, to Carolina. I explained how you had used my name to take advantage of others as well. They didn't just abuse me. They used my reputation to drag others down with them." I stood up. "I'm not angry. I'm exhausted. Exhausted from being the family's ATM. I'm leaving. And when I say family, I mean people who care about your well-being, not your bank account." As I headed for the door, my mother stopped me. "And now what?" "Now they're discovering who they are, even though I'm not the one paying for it." 8 months have passed. The silence that followed was different. It wasn't a punishment. It was simply silence. But to my surprise, they were getting through it. My father got a full-time job. My mother started working part-time in a store. They sold the house and moved to a more modest apartment, supported by warehouse and retail sales income. Laura's marketing business went bankrupt, but now she works in customer service at an insurance company, and she's doing well. She's more at ease. Tomas finished university, works as a junior accountant, sold his Mustang, and now drives a used Honda. She learned to manage her money. They're still upset with me, but they're doing their own thing. For the first time, Valeria and I bought a house. Nothing fancy, but the title is in my name. And that felt incredible. 3 months ago, I received a handwritten letter from my father. It was brief and somewhat awkward. We're managing our finances on our own and learning to live within our means. We hadn't realized how much we depended on your help. I understand if you need more time. It wasn't an apology, but it wasn't a reproach either. I read it 3 times and saved it to my desktop. I didn't respond, not out of resentment, but because forgiveness isn't a public act. And it was then that I understood something essential. I don't miss them. I miss the idea of them. The image of proud parents, of siblings who enjoy my company. But I don't miss the reality of walking on broken glass, the emotional blackmail, or feeling guilty for asking reasonable questions. The silence in my life is not empty. It is peace.